The MoneroTopia weekly news segment is sponsored by WizardSwap.io, a non-custodial cryptocurrency exchange.
So first story of the day, this guy who works for Proton, I'm not exactly sure what his position is. He tweeted out that Proton VPN, Proton Mail, Proton Drive, Proton Pass, and Proton Unlimited are you could use Monero essentially to buy all these services. But then it then turned out to be that actually, because then Paul asked directly or just still using a reseller, aka proxy store, and I believe it's that they're just using a reseller that's selling like essentially, I guess, like gift cards to the service, and they're not actually natively accepting Monero. So that was a little bit of a roller coaster. People got excited, and then people got upset because they're not natively accepting it, and they should, man, given who they are. This is kind of a big story this week in reaction to all the Charlie Kirk stuff. What does the administration want to do? They want to start essentially going after people that are using hate speech. So kind of antithetical to what Charlie Kirk stood for, right? He was a kind of a free speech absolutist, right? All about engaging in speech and letting the best ideas win. And here was the Trump administration reacting in the opposite direction. Can't say I'm surprised. Let me go ahead and quickly play this clip.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
No sound.
No sound, guys?
Yeah, but funnily enough, you can totally tell what they're saying because they both have resting bitch face going on. So, like, it's pretty obvious that they're here to,
why is this
nanny us into being quiet, you know?
Except that that's not the truth.
Sound
I
should be
can't tell
working.
what they're saying.
No, you guys can't hear anything?
No.
No, can you hear it on your end?
Yeah, I could hear it on my end. That's why. You know what?
Whenever somebody is making that face, they're always telling you that you shouldn't be allowed to say what you want to say. So it's like already written on their face.
Well, this is Thomas Massey responding to it. Hate speech is a term used by those in power to describe thoughts they don't want spoken. It's antithetical to the First Amendment. So it's nice to at least see Thomas Massey speaking out against it. But let me see if I can play the video if it works this way.
And there is no
There it is.
place,
Did you guys hear?
especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything. And that's across the aisle. There's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is.
Yeah, so there you go, guys. Trump administration is now declaring war on free speech in response to Charlie Kirk's passing, which is pretty ironic. Pretty sad to see. But
So
yeah,
does that mean I have a warrant out for my arrest?
I don't know, man. Be careful what you say.
When I don't show up one of these Saturdays, that means you need to get the out. Okay.
Next story, we pretty much covered this, but Baby Solo tweeted, FUD spreads faster than facts, but XMR proves truth survives the noise. An 18-block reorg made the headlines. The reality, the attack was economic, not technical. Disruptive, yes. Destructive, no. The war on privacy won't stop. They rent power. We own time. Offren, I would think you would disagree with that, right? It shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's like propaganda damage control. I as much as like I like that people will are going out of their way to do damage control. I'm not a fan of lying, and it's not true that nothing bad happened.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should be putting our head in the sand with this issue. And then we had some fun tweets come from beyond. So many articles about Monero transactions being erased and not a single report of a double spending. Why? Offren, I think you had a comment on that too, right? Like
I commented on that with the command that you can send to Monero D in order to see how many invalid transactions and how many double spends the node is seeing. And I sent a screenshot of it.
Right. So we didn't technically have a double spend, but we, like you were explaining
No,
before,
we technically did. We had 50 pluses though.
those are considered double. Yeah. You would
So
categorize that
if
as
the
a double spend?
so if I send you 5 Monero and that transaction gets invalidated, and then I flush my TX pool and send that 5 Monero to somebody else, I double spent that money I sent to you. If I sent it back to you, it wouldn't be considered a double spend. It would be considered a double spend by the note, but it wouldn't be considered a double spend in the traditional sense because I didn't steal any money from anybody.
Right.
But if I send that money again to anybody but you, it's a double spend. And the nodes have seen at least 50 of those, at least 50 instances where people respent the money that had previously been spent.
Right. I don't know if I would. I totally get what you're saying, and I think it's good to be realistic about it and categorize it as that for purposes of not letting people put their head in the sand. But I don't know. I don't know if other people have comments on that, whether they technically consider that a true double spend.
Well, like if I bought a gift card from CakePay, and CakePay requires 10 confirmations, right? If I bought a gift card from CakePay and my transaction was invalidated and I got the gift card, then I didn't pay for that gift card.
Right.
I now have the money back and I can do whatever I want with it, which isn't the double spend attack, but it's a double spend. A double spend attack would involve me doing it on purpose.
Right.
Would involve me being the one to force that to happen. But I'm not the one that forced it to happen. Cubic is the one that allowed people to double spend unintentionally.
Exactly. All right. That makes it. That's when you put it that way. It makes a whole lot of sense. So yeah, guys. I mean, don't panic, but let's not act like it's not a problem. Go ahead.
But I think people who are still on the fence about this should really pay attention to the last thing that he said, which is there is now an entity that has caused intentionally the ability for people to get stuff without paying. So Cubic is making it possible for people to get stuff without paying. And so at this point, they are actively contributing, whether the people who are doing it intentionally or unintentionally. If they spent Monero and then got it back and they don't realize that, and then they spend it again, which is at least 4/5 of all of the elements of what we don't want to happen with double spending. But Cubic is facilitating outright theft at this point. Like, even if it's out of ignorance, what he's saying is it is now 100% confirmed that Cubic can be seen as nothing but a hostile actor. So people who are still on the fence about this, like, it's too late now. They have actively contributed to outright theft using the Monero blockchain.
And we know that CFB is monitoring the research lab and the research lounge because he's quoted stuff that's been said there plenty of times. And Renee had proposed that we perform the invalidation attack on testnet before anybody does it on mainnet, just to prove that it happens. So we did it, and we got a bunch of transactions stuck in the TX pool. And like 2 days later, no, it was immediately after I pushed the DNS checkpoint pull request that they did the 18 block reload. And I'm like, they did that on purpose. Like, they knew it could happen. We proved it on testnet. The transactions are stuck in the mempool. You can see them. You can see them stuck there. You can see them invalidated. And then they went and they did it on mainnet as soon as we showed that we were almost ready to push the DNS checkpoints. And that's like, you guys are like unequivocally bad actors. You're malicious entities. And whoever you guys have as exchange partners, considering you dump Monero there to buy Cubic or whatever it is you do, those people are potential victims of what you just did. So to me personally, I hope that MBXC or whoever else has Cubic listed, delist them and treats them like the bad actors that they are, because they are the ones that broke Kraken's wallets. They are the ones that are the reasons why MBXC or Kraken or whoever has to raise their deposit confirmations. It's not because of some random freak of active nature. It's because somebody is actively allowing people to steal money.
And more importantly, like, in the long run, we're very blessed that this is happening to us still so relatively early in the game. The opportunity to see, real world pen testing like this, I guess, for lack of a better word. Because the thing is a lot of a lot of people who have been behaving hostilely toward Monero are now watching as Monero is creating like systems to improve its resiliency against real bad actors, against real thieves. And Cubic is also stealing from people that are contributing to their mining, just like you were talking about earlier, which I'm far less knowledgeable on exactly what was going on with that. But you have lots and lots of people claiming that they are not getting the rewards that they were told they were going to get. So they're stealing from the people contributing to Cubic. They're stealing or they're causing theft from people who are accepting Monero, and they've caused disruptions in these exchanges. And at this point, could it be anything less than this person is clearly anybody who works on it, they're hostile participants in the space. And when is the time where everybody is going to treat them as such? I don't know. I mean, Monero seems to be figuring it out, but
all right, guys, let me keep moving. Otherwise, we'll never get through the news here. Next story is a new version of P2 Pool has been released. I don't know if you guys have any comment on that, if anybody understands what the new release is doing.
Yeah, so normally P2 Pool has a very good block relay. So if I find a block on P2 Pool, all the other P2 Pool miners also submit that block to their nodes, which makes the block propagate the network a lot faster. Now, if you run your own centralized pool and you connect it to a P2 Pool node, as of this new version, the P2 Pool node will see when a new block arrives on your node, and it will relay that to P2 Pool nodes to also have them broadcast it. So it improves propagation of blocks for people that aren't even mining on P2 Pool.
Yeah, I think I saw that Data Hoarder said something to the fact that it could improve the hash rate by up to 1% because of nodes having the blocks faster.
Yeah, I think I can't remember what he said exactly, but I think it's basically that instead of mining on the old block, because you get the block faster, that you'd start mining on the new block faster, which would give us, I wouldn't say give us an advantage, but give us more power against selfish mining, because the reason Cubic broadcasts empty blocks is because empty blocks propagate faster. So by speeding up our propagation of normal blocks, it lowers that gap a bit.
Oh, that's good. All right, so exciting to see improvements happening there. Next story. Jameson Lopp noticed that everyone using Trade.org exchange just got rugged, and a message on a chain claims it was seizure by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. So it was first a rumor because people had saw this message, and then the news came out soon thereafter that it was in fact not just a rumor, but Trade Ogre has been taken over by essentially the Canadian government. They came in, they rugged everybody, and they currently hold everybody's crypto that had crypto on there. As we said earlier, it's unfortunate because it's being framed like everybody that was using Trade Ogre was participating in some kind of legal activity that had whatever dirty crypto and was going there to wash it, whatever the claims may be. But we know that there were a lot of innocent actors that were just using it because it was just an easy way to swap cryptos like Litecoin, Bitcoin, whatever, into privacy coins, and to swap Monero into other privacy coins. So unfortunate to see. I guess nice to see that it wasn't the Trade Ogre people after all. A lot of people were upset. Like, how could they do this? They seemed like they were a good service. So it wasn't them that rugged you. It was the Canadian government.
And the Canadian government claims that the Trade Ogre operator had passed away. So on one hand, it's probably a good thing that the government has the money. Otherwise, it would have just been lost to the ether. Now, I guess you could contact the Canadian government and demand your money back. Otherwise, they're just grave robbers.
So wait,
the Canadian government said that he passed away.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, they said it was a guy in the United States that had recently died who owned the exchange, and that they're not looking for anybody, and there's no charges pressed or anything like that.
Huh? That's a little suspicious.
Which would make a little bit of sense if they if like when the website was still up, why people were having trouble contacting support or other things like that.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
it could have even been that somebody had an issue with the exchange, contacted support, couldn't get in touch with them, and then contacted the police about it, and the police went and seized it, and they found out that the reason the guy couldn't get his support was because he was the operator was dead. So rest in peace
Wow.
if he actually passed away, and yeah.
Yeah.
As far as
Set-
the RCMP having your crypto, good luck getting it back. But it's kind of doubtful that I wouldn't think many criminals would be caught up in this because I would think most criminals would be smart enough to know not your keys, not your coins.
Yeah, and that's like the big thing with Trade Ogre was it was an exchange for people to mine all of these other coins without having to create wallets for them. You could mine Cubic. You know what I mean? And you don't have to create a Cubic wallet. You could just deposit the Cubic directly to Trade Ogre and then sell it.
right.
Like you don't ever have to own a Cubic wallet. So there was a lot of Cubic that was actually lost on Trade Ogre as a result of that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Pirate Chain, Monero,
Xano,
Monero.
because remember in that Xano transparency report or whatever that Trade Ogre was staking Xano.
Okay.
So whatever Xano Trade Ogre was staking is gone now.
Yep.
I don't know if people are going to value this, but it's as an Alaskan, you have a lot of interactions with the Canadian government. It's just part of anything that comes via road or whatever has to go through Canada. In fact, there are lots of places where in order to get from one part of Alaska to another part of Alaska, you have to go through Canada. And I can tell you, dealing with the Canadian government for anything ever takes months and months. Like if you want to make like the slightest change to any kind of official interaction, it can take like 6 months to do the most basic things. And I have so much pity on anybody who is going to try to get their crypto back from the Canadian government because the paperwork is going to be impossible. It's going to take God knows how long. They're probably going to charge you for like how long they had to be a custodian or something. You're going to have to like have all kinds of documents that they even usually make you mail in physical copies of all kinds of important documents like your IDs and passports and stuff. And then they hold on to them until the interaction is finished. So like a whole bunch of crypto bros having to send the passport to the Canadian government and leave it with them for like a year before they can get their crypto back. This is going to be an absolute nightmare for people who have to go through this. I feel so bad for them.
In other words, that means the Canadian government has now a bunch of crypto.
Yeah, and it's a really good argument for why we should never go proof of stake as well, because like it's this is what they do. They just hoard and hoard and hoard all kinds of these assets and so on. And then they'll just like borrow against them in their own fiat Fed notes in order to like prop up their dollary dues, which Canadian dollars are already basically worthless. So
yes, so it was in fact confirmed by the Canadian government, and the number being quoted is 56 million in crypto that was.
But you see that last website you were looking at said 32.
Yeah,
that's where it's like that's 32 that was that you could see on chain in transparent addresses. Mm-hmm. For the rest of it, it has to be in privacy coins. So that's like I'm saying that's 15 to 25 million. And that could potentially be Monero, and that's where I'm like, that's over 100,000 Monero. So I'm not like when it comes to proof of stake, I'm not comfortable with knowing that when a darknet market gets seized or Trade Ogre gets seized or whoever loses their Monero in an RCMP accident, all of a sudden that can be used as stake. And I'm like, the same thing whether you're using KuCoin or Binance or whatever. We already know that Trade Ogre was staking Xano. If they could have, they would have staked Monero. They would have staked the users' deposits. Why not? Like,
There's another really interesting part about this, which if the guy died in the United States and he was operating in the United States, and yet the Canadian government ends up with this, and maybe there's some kind of peripheral reason. But if I were a hostile actor to the crypto community an ideal place for this seizure to take place would be Canada, because Canada can get away with all kinds of stuff without having to pass laws, without having, they can just bureaucracy the crap out of all of this wealth without any recourse, especially since it's a very low population location and it's very hard to interact with the government. It's kind of like the ideal vault as far as a government is concerned for scooping up all of this stuff.
Well, if the guy didn't die, the government is smart, because let's say I was the guy and the government just stole my exchange. What am I going to do? Come out and say, I'm not dead. Give me my money. I'm going to get arrested as soon as I do that.
If he wasn't dead, he's practically dead now, right?
Yeah. So, it's in his own best interest to just pretend like he's dead and let the government steal his money.
That's wild. Let me keep moving. So Cake Wallet came out with a new feature. Our new Pay Anything feature does exactly what it promises. Send to any address using whatever crypto you have. No wallet switching, no manual swaps, just seamless payment. So you can basically scan any crypto address, any type of, not just Monero, obviously any crypto address, and then it will essentially auto swap. That's pretty cool. So obviously they're trying to get closer and closer to making it seamless payments, right? So it's not, eventually these things are kind of happening in the background. You see a payment address, you swipe, you pay, and then it's just paying with whatever crypto you have. That is kind of the holy grail of how we want to be using these wallets eventually. Next story. Here we go. I try not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I have a really hard time believing in a short text message between the alleged shooter. I don't know if I'm sure most people saw this. There's text messages that came out that was allegedly from the shooter to his boyfriend, and in those text messages, he essentially makes a confession. He confirms the location of where the weapon would have been, confirms the type of weapon, confirms it was wrapped in a towel, confirms his motive, exonerates the decoy, somebody else that had that they were, somebody else that they were labeling as the shooter, admits to the bullet engravings, confirms the wardrobe change, confirms how long he's been planning it. This is all in the text messages that he sent out to his boyfriend right after the incident took place. He found a comfortable spot to sit down and basically, spill his guts and admit everything in text. So obviously, seems a little odd. I guess probably the best reasoning I heard is that he was just trying to provide an alibi, right, to his boyfriend. So the boyfriend can pretend that he had no idea what was happening and whatnot. This discloses the existence and location of a now destroyed pre-written confession note, randomly tells his boyfriend that his dad is diehard MAGA, as if he wouldn't have already known that. So yeah, just more curious, interesting things about that case. I won't go into it. There's plenty of discussion happening on X relative to all that. We spoke about it last week. This is a good one. So hell has frozen over. Tucker Carlson is calling out the fascist authoritarian Trump regime for insidiously using the assassination of Charlie Kirk as an excuse to abolish the First Amendment, round up Americans, and carry out the Nazification of America. So you even have Tucker Carlson now calling out the Trump admin. Let's see what he has to say.
You hope that. You hope that Charlie Kirk's death won't be used by a group we now call bad actors to create a society that was the opposite of the one he worked to build. You hope that. You hope that a year from now, the turmoil we're seeing in the aftermath of his murder won't be leveraged to bring hate speech laws to this country. And trust me, if that does happen, there is never a more justified moment for civil disobedience than that, ever, and there never will be. Because if they can tell you what to say, they're telling you what to think. There is nothing they can't do to you because they don't consider you human. They don't believe you have a soul. a human being with a soul, a free man, has a right to say what he believes, not to hurt other people, but to express his views. You hope that.
And has a right to use untraceable digital cash as well. So unfortunate to see the Trump regime moving in this direction. But once again, we can't say we're surprised, right? I'm sure the connection to Palantir may have something to do with it, right? How are they going to enforce these things? So we're waiting to see what hammer drops next with the administration in response to Charlie Kirk. Does it lead to the implementation of digital IDs and the ramping up of Palantir? Who knows, to be determined. But it looks like that's the direction the administration is heading in, using this as an excuse, the ratchet effect to, ratchet things up, use this tragedy, this incident to basically implement more authoritarianism. Untraceable put out a really, really good tweet. The Monero community has raised 1,895 XMR. That's almost 600K at current prices for protocol development and other Monero-related projects so far in 2025. So that's pretty impressive. 35,000 Monero, so 10 million since 2020. And 630 Monero, almost 200K was donated just last week. So very cool to see the numbers in action. It just keeps going up and up and up. The amount of donations that have been made to the CCS projects over time. So that's always a very good indication. People are supporting Monero development. And we got one last story here, not directly Monero related, but as you know, we like to keep an eye on the totalitarianism, on the technocratic state. So here's a tweet somebody put out. I guess this was a recent interview she did, I assume, or maybe somebody here just brought it up, but it's a good one to watch. This is insane. Whitney Webb gives a history of Palantir. Palantir essentially started as a DARPA project. So let's go ahead and listen to this. She's alleging that, and I think I've heard her mention this before, that it basically came out of a government program. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
Peter Thiel, as an example, Palantir has been in the news, right? He's a co-founder of that. So how was Palantir created? Well, there was this company that was being run, or not company, sorry. It was a government program after 9/11 called Total Information Awareness. It was housed within the Pentagon's DARPA office. And the man they chose to put in charge of that was John Poindexter, who was the highest ranking member of the Reagan administration to be indicted for his role in Iran-Contra, which, again, the continuity of government stuff is relevant here. So eventually, it launches and whatever, but people are outraged by it because, as they rightly pointed out, it would eliminate constitutional protections of Americans' rights, specifically the right to privacy, among other things. It was a huge surveillance dragnet, and its goal wasn't just to, surveil everything. It was to predict crime before it happens, predict terror attacks before it happens. I mean, it's like Minority Report was basically the end goal of it. And so after all the pushback, they changed the name to Terrorist Information Awareness and try and rebrand. Oh, it's not total. We are still going to surveil innocent Americans, but we're focusing on the terrorists. They did all this stuff to try and rebrand it, but Congress defunded it. But hidden in that bill, Congress allowed aspects of it to continue. And essentially, I argue in my work on Palantir that an effort was made to privatize large aspects of TIA as Palantir. Because when Alex Karp and Peter Thiel were setting it up, they went to John Poindexter through this guy named Richard Pearl, who is a long-standing neocon actor with very extensive ties also to the state of Israel. He was caught in the 70s giving classified information to Israel's embassy and should have gone to jail and somehow did not. And had a lot of ties also to Netanyahu's first government. And Richard Pearl is the guy that connected Thiel Karp to Poindexter, and they basically wanted to talk to Poindexter because they wanted to recreate Total Information Awareness and saw him as the godfather of modern mass surveillance. And In doing so, they basically, Peter Thiel teams up with In-Q-Tel, the CIA's venture capital firm. Alex Karp has said on record that the intended clients of Palantir from the beginning was the CIA. And, the CIA was their first client for their first 6 years as a company. Their top developers went to Langley, Virginia, which is CIA headquarters, every 2 weeks to show the CIA their product and have them tweak it to their liking. And during that period of time, one of the top people at the CIA that would have been involved in that is this guy named Alan Wade, who was also intimately involved with total information awareness. And if you look at how total information awareness was described, its privacy protections, it's exactly the same as the way Palantir sold their stuff later on. So there's an insane amount of overlap. And what's crazy here is that Alan Wade, a few years prior, had created a Homeland Security software program that was also pre-crime-esque and similar to what Palantir ended up doing. It was called Kiliad, and he teamed up with Christine Maxwell to do that. Peter Thiel